Well dressed, very well dressed. And next up, Jody Minnick. Let's give Jody Minnick a nice round of applause. If I had nice tattoos, I wouldn't wear a jacket either. That's a good call on your part. Welcome, Jody. And then Candy Perlmutter. Let's give Candy Perlmutter a nice round of applause. And then joining us live from Los Angeles, because of circumstances we couldn't control, stuff that no one could have predicted, we're so happy to have her here. Chantal Kreviazuk will be right there. Let's give her a round of applause. Maybe she can hear us. Hopefully she can. Chantal, that is for you.
Look at that piece of tape.
We're all on our spike marks, please.
Thank you. I want to be able to read. Yes.
Chantal, everybody else came out and did push-ups when they came in, so if you can do a few of those in the LA studio.
I only did 2. Jody did 70.
Hi,
Can I do them
everybody.
like
How's
that? Is that
everybody
okay?
doing?
Gonna be good.
Hi.
So
It's so good to see you all in
start
person.
with
We've
the
been
crack
meeting.
of.
I'm gonna practice my flip.
All right, so our live stream has started. So welcome to our listeners on the web.
Hey, everybody.
How are you guys? I'm gonna welcome them for a live stream. You missed out, but obviously you know our panelists. If you're on the web and watching this, I assume you know Humble the Poet and Candy Perlmutter and Jody Minnick and Measha Brueggergosman and Chantal Kreviazuk will be joining us live with the miracle of technology. She will be right there, pretty much at the table. You're
Pretty much.
almost at the table.
Yeah.
You're so very close, Chantal. You cannot see us, though, Chantal. Is that right?
No.
We can't
But
see
I'm
you
so
either.
glad that we've spent time together so that, yeah, I'm so glad that we all got to know each other a bit.
It's
And I
true.
can see everybody's faces.
That is
Nice.
a
And
value
I already
because-
know Measha, which is so wonderful.
Even though you can't see when somebody at this panel is rolling their eyes, you would know it. You would just know
Yeah,
it
you
from
hear
the
it.
time you spent with them. You can almost hear the eye
It's
roll.
also you can hear the air quotes.
Well,
you can always
I'm
hear
not-
air quotes.
I feel a little silly,
I'm not
Ellie.
intimidated because I've
Go
already
ahead,
met you
Chantal, go
all,
ahead.
so I already know you all. So
I was just about to put in my first complaint
Yes.
because I opened, I'm like, what is this? I'm like, oh, it's the ballad. And then I was really angry because my book isn't on it. And then I realized, oh, this is my ballad. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in past
So-
years,
I'll wait till I start making trouble then. I'll
right?
just
Exactly.
wait
I
a
like
little
that the
bit.
protest.
wanna be
Your
voted
Way to
But
go,
I was
Ken.
ready. I was like,
Obvious.
Darren, I'm
We can
not
put
even
yours
listening.
on your
Yeah,
ballot if
no.
you want.
Write it in. Just write it
Yeah,
in.
go ahead, write it in.
I'm
Okay.
good.
Great. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Just over a minute. We'll stop at about 30 seconds.
Okay, sounds good. You know, in past years, all 5 books were mentioned, and the host would say, please choose the book you want to be eliminated. But people just heard the book that they love, and then they checked off their own book to be eliminated, and then that was an awkward moment. Yeah, I'm just peeling back the curtain on some inside
Canada
stuff
Reads
that
lore.
Canada Reads right
And
now.
then there are the people who confess, I believe it was 2012, to not having finished every book till the end.
And who was that?
I'm not saying anything because
Give us the gossip.
Karma's a bitch,
Give the
and
web
I'm not.
audience the
it was
gossip.
Debbie Travis.
Debbie Travis. That was easy. That was easy to get the gossip out of Measha.
It's
Here we go.
sorry.
Stand by, folks. 30 seconds to air.
This is Canada Reads, Canada's annual title fight.
Hello and welcome. This is Canada Reads. I'm your host, Ali Hassan. What is the one book that Canada needs now? That is the question that we will be answering this week
break is the answer.
on CBC's Battle of the
Wow,
Books.
right in there.
Right in there. Not wasting
I will
any
let
time.
You finish your introduction, Al.
That is so kind of you. Right? Somebody's getting points at the table, somebody's not. The 5 people here with me are the ones making the decision about who wins this week, and let's meet them now. All right. So, your first panelist can read a score as well as she can read a book. She's an opera singer
Who could
who's
it be?
performed all over the world. She's performed for Nelson Mandela, Kofi Annan, and the Queen. Yes, that Queen. And more than 3 billion people watched her performance at the 2010 Vancouver Olympic Games. Please welcome Measha Brueggergosman. Good. You're good? You're happy?
Super exciting.
So
Terrified.
polite. Tell me, did you say terrified?
Throw in terrified there and a little, just,
Well, I
for
mean,
the web viewers.
You perform for royalty. What's more nerve-wracking, Canada Reads or performing for the Queen?
The Queen stays put. Candy could come across the table at any minute.
This is true.
Cane swinging. Cane
Yeah,
swinging. Good
swinging.
reputation you have there,
Yeah,
Candy.
no.
Tell us what book you're defending.
I am defending Company Town by Madeline Ashby. Like the support? I like it. I like the support.
All right. Your next defender knows how to put up a fight. He fought for the Canadian Army as a sniper in Afghanistan. He and his brother fought for a second-place finish on The Amazing Race Canada. Sorry to bring that up. I meant that as a wonderful thing. Now he fights for his fellow citizens as a city councillor in Ottawa. Please welcome Jody Middick.
Thank you, sir. Just that hurts. When I was a kid, I had a T-shirt that said second place to the first loser.
Oh, yeah.
So whenever someone, oh, you're a second place, I go, yeah, awesome. It was the first loser.
Sounds like somebody ruined your life by buying you that T-shirt. You could never be happy again. Now, would you say that Canada Reads is more like the military or like politics or The Amazing Race?
A little bit Amazing Race.
Yeah?
A little bit of politics.
Not too much like Amazing Race, or you could come in second. I know that's why you said a little bit.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah,
resemble it at all.
But this was something I had to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was asked, my mom is a mega fan. She probably would have disowned me if I didn't do this. And, so it's an honor to be here. Thanks.
We're motivated by our mothers. We're motivated by T-shirts. It depends. It's all different things. Tell me, what book are you fighting for?
I'm fighting for Nostalgia by M.G. Vizanji.
Your next champion is known for speaking her mind. She's done it as a lawyer, she's done it as a stand-up comedian, and she's done it as a broadcaster. And we know she'll do it again this week. Please welcome Candy Palmer. How are you, Candy?
I'm great, Ali. I would just like to take one moment when we're about to talk about Canadian books and have the Battle of the Canadian Books. I just would feel amiss to start that without taking a moment to acknowledge the passing of a great Canadian storyteller, Richard Wagamese.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
It'll be a sadder battle for me knowing that Richard isn't still in the world with us. So.
Yeah. Tell us this, law, broadcasting, or comedy, which was the best Canada Reads prep?
Well, I would have normally said comedy until I started seeing that Jody was using Sun Tzu to prepare. So then I realized I had to get my law and I had to go do like Taekwondo or something. Now, I did do Tai Bo in the 80s, but usually I would just like play the video while eating chips. So I'm not sure
Yeah.
if it's gonna work for me, but I gotta say, this guy's got me running scared. Got me on the ropes, so I gotta really get pumped up.
You've inspired everybody to do weapons training to get
So yeah,
Whatever it takes.
The art of war applies to any competition.
It does.
Yes,
it
it
does.
does.
Yeah. Even I think, for
Listen,
Jody.
I employ it for home decor.
I am so excited, Ali, because I have watched this show competitively for years, tweeted about it for years, so I am tickled pink to
Good.
be here today defending the winning book, The Break, by Katerina Vermette.
The words, the winning book, by the way, that's just Candy's addendum to the title, The Break. But,
Yes.
but yeah, maybe. Let's see what happens. Now, if you watch YouTube, you've probably seen our next panelist. His videos have been watched by more than millions of people. 15 million times is what we know.
Mostly just me pressing refresh.
It's actually, so, well, that's interesting, given your name. I mean, above and beyond the YouTube, if you want to be humble about that, this man is also a musician, an author, a poet, and a performance artist. Please welcome Humble the Poet. You are humble by name. This week, will you be humble by nature?
I mean, I can be humble. We got the winner in our hands, so.
I mean, that's one version of humble, I suppose. That's not the humility I
When you
thought I'd
know,
hear,
you
but I
know.
like it.
I
When you
mean,
know, you know.
I didn't pick the Giller Prize winner.
Oh.
You know,
The
I didn't-
Gillard Prize winner picked you? Is that what
I
you're
mean,
saying?
the Giller Prize, yeah, found me.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, so.
Very nice. All right, so tell us what book you are defending there.
I am defending 15 Dogs by Andre Alexis.
All right. Well, if you're a music lover, odds are you have heard the work of our final defender. She sold millions of albums. She's won Juno Awards. She's collaborated with everyone from Drake to Carrie Underwood to Kendrick Lamar. She's a member of the Order of Canada and has a star on Canada's Walk of Fame. She cannot be here in person, but she's joining us live from Los Angeles. Please welcome Chantal Kreviazuk. How are you, Chantal?
Well, I'm very emotional. Very emotional. My son is in the hospital, and he had an acute asthma attack. And there was a moment where I had to make a decision that I could not fly to Toronto because he's not going to get out of the hospital for a long time, unfortunately. But he's having an asthma attack because of climate change and because of longer seasons and epic proportions of pollens and allergies. And The Right to Be Cold by Watt-Cloutier is a book that will empower us on the issue of climate change. And so when I looked at my son, I believed more than ever that this book I didn't choose the book chose me. And I needed to still be here. And I'm so glad that we have the technology so that I can fight for the only book that we all need to read. I don't care about winning. We do need to read this book. It's really exciting to be here. And like I said, I'm very emotional. Thank you.
Thank you, Chantal. Thank you for being here, despite the adversity you're facing at home. So Chantal is defending Sheila Watt-Cloutier's The Right to Be Cold. And there you have it. Your contenders for this year's Battle of the Books. Yeah. Measha Brueggergosman defending Company Town.
I am.
Jody Minnick defending Nostalgia. Candy Perlmutter defending The Break. Humble the Poet defending 15 Dogs. And Chantal Kreviazuk defending The Right to Be Cold. I'm your host, Ali Hassan. This is Canada Reads on CBC Radio 1 and Sirius XM. All right, panelists, we've met you. Now it is time to meet the books that you're defending. We're going to go around the table one at a time. All right, we are going to first play a trailer, and then the panelist who's defending that book. We'll get 30 seconds to make their opening argument.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. It used to be 60, but it's a fast-paced world, and we're a fast-paced show.
Goodness
We're at 30
140
seconds.
characters or less.
Yeah, you will know when your 30 seconds are up, by the way, because of that. That sound means
The
it's
bell
up.
of death.
And my apologies to the woman who wrote to me directly and asking me to get rid of the bell. That's not really my call. And literally, that will only ring maybe 6 more times in this entire show. So hopefully,
you can
don't
ring
suffer
Everybody at
too
home
much.
loves the bell. Everybody loves
Can I ring the
bell.
bell once now just to get out of
All
the
right, make it
system?
7 times. I guess you can. That's it.
All right.
We tried
for
the horn, and the ha really just doesn't. It robs the credibility of the show. Exactly. The important point is it's 30 seconds that you have, and more importantly, you only get one chance to make a first impression. So make it count. Okay. Measha, you're up first.
Oh, I wrote it down. I got it.
Your book is Company Town by Madeline Ashby. Here is the trailer.
A giant rig squats off the coast of what used to be called Newfoundland. The oil has run out. It's a town fueled by one family's greed. Women are dying. Hua is a bodyguard. She's unique. 100% organic, no implants. She only has her taekwondo moves and her attitude. Hua is fighting for justice, and she can't be hacked.
Okay, Measha, 30 seconds are on the clock. Why should Company Town win Canada Reads?
A gritty, inclusive page-turner of a book, Company Town is now because it spins a yarn of many pieces of Canada's future. Green energy, decriminalized sex work, the wealth gap, health privilege, and with Hua, the multiracial, tough but vulnerable female Newfoundlander, I know this book will resonate coast to coast with both women and men. Company Town administers the bitter medicine we need in order to heal with the sweet satisfaction of people finding acceptance and justice being served.
All right, Jody, you're next. You're championing Nostalgia by M.G. Vasanji. Here is the trailer.
You ever truly leave the past behind? Yes, if you're rich. You can purchase a new personality. Leaked memory syndrome is a minor risk. One day, a patient comes in with persistent flashbacks.
It's midnight. The lion is out. You must kill the lion. It's midnight. The lion is out.
A memory doctor's curiosity is piqued, and lives start to unravel.
Jody, you have 30 seconds. Why should Nostalgia win Canada Reads?
Nostalgia should win Canada Reads because it connects directly with the moment we are in right now. It is the social and political pathway that we need to pay attention to, because who doesn't want to recreate themselves? They want to move on, they want to have a new life, but what we learn with nostalgia is that no matter how hard you try, no matter how hard you run, the past will always catch up to you, and it will always influence your future, and you can't run from your past.
Candy, you're defending The Break by Katharina Vermette. Here is the trailer.
A freezing night. A young Métis girl is attacked and left in the snow. Her family gathers around her hospital bed. As they wait, their stories on spool. Separately, the women's voices are fragile, fragmented. Together, they rise in a powerful chorus of love and hope.
Candy, I'm giving you 30 seconds. Why should The Break win Canada Reads?
The Break has been the #1 selling book in Canada for the last 2 weeks running, so Canadians have already spoken. It is an amazing tale woven by Katharina Vermette about the effects that colonization is having on Indigenous communities right now, today. And in this, the year that Canada has chosen to celebrate a birthday of sorts, this country is in need of healing in a way it has never been before. And this book is the book that could heal a nation. And that's why The Break is the book that Canada has to read right now. All my relations.
Thank you. Thank you, Candy. All right, Humble, you're defending 15 Dogs by Andre Alexis. You know the drill. Here is the trailer.
In a Toronto tavern, 2 Greek gods place a bet. Suddenly, 15 dogs in a nearby animal clinic begin to think like humans. They learn there's more to life than eating, running, and mating. They start thinking about time, death, God, poetry. They still have the old urges to survive, to dominate, What are the odds they'll die happy? Roll the dice.
All right, Humble, you have 30 seconds. That's about 15 seconds per dog. Tell us, why should 15 Dogs win Canada Reads?
Not only is 15 Dogs the book that Canada needs to read today, it was the book they needed to read 50 years ago, and it's still going to be the book we need to read 50 years from now. We have a lot of issues, and a lot of these books touch upon those issues, but those issues only happen because of the human condition. Until we understand the human condition, we will not be able to successfully address any of those issues. Human nature is the cause for the man-made problems that we have. 15 Dogs hits that on the nose.
You could have added other body parts that it hits on. You had time to add chin
hit on the
and
nose,
forehead.
chin,
Yeah, well, thank you, Humble.
Just a dance, just in a dance now.
I should have done a little.
Chantal, last but not least, your book is The Right to Be Cold by Sheila Watt-Cloutier. Here is the trailer.
As a child, Sheila Watt-Cloutier traveled by dog sled. As an adult, she's traversed the globe, bringing urgent news from the north. The Arctic is polluted, melting. The Inuit way of life is shattering like so many promises. Silenced when young, she finds her voice.
We are in this together.
Speaking up to protect her people, her homeland, and our planet.
Chantal, 30 seconds are on the clock. Why should The Right to Be Cold win Canada Reads?
The Right to Be Cold is the only book that Canada must read, needs to read, because we are in an absolutely critical moment in civilization, and Sheila Watt-Cloutier, through her heroic autobiographical story, teaches us, empowers us with a manual, a guidebook for how to actually resolve the problems that we face as a world. This book will provide Canada an opportunity to reunite and come together and give us our most shining moment as a country and lead the world in how to fix
There is a delay. Thank you. Thank you, Chantal. All right, panelists, that was just your warm-up.
I know, it's exciting.
What cards are you keeping close to the chest? Who plays dirty? That's what people want to know. Who will take the high road? And who will pounce when the moment's right? Who will the panelist be that makes someone cry? It happens. It happens almost every season. This is Canada Reads on CBC Radio 1 and SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ali Hassan. It's the Battle of the Books. Let the games begin.
Can we just take a moment to acknowledge, I'm not sure what the person's name is, but whoever put together those vignettes, they were really, really
fantastic.
good.
I mean,
They were
I
very,
think
very
that
good.
it's a great opportunity for any filmmaker to be on the CBC Sizzles payroll. So here they are, making these little vignettes. Mine was a little dystopic, but we'll get to that.
This one or the one from
My
years ago?
Company Town.
Okay.
I mean, my book's an upper.
Are we celebrating these people or are we not
I'm
celebrating these people?
celebrating. I just thought they were really well
All right.
done and that they deserved a little
All right,
more.
I agree with that.
My puppies were cute. So
Your puppies were cute.
so cute.
My puppies were cute.
All right. See, this is the
Tough to
thing
be a
with the
Jack
panel,
Russell
given a
puppy.
chance to complain about something, you know, even though we were celebrating the
Yes, I was trying
Yes.
to
In
All
honor
right.
of being at the CBC, I figured I'd complain about something.
Perfect. You know what? We're going to go into a debate where you're going to have plenty of time to complain about some stuff that really affects exactly what you're reading. So we're going to spend some time getting into each of these books today, as you know. There are 5 books on the table right now, but by the end of this show, there will only be 4. So that means, for one of you, this will be the only time that we get to discuss your book. So don't hold back. We're going to discuss all 5 books on the table one at a time. We heard your opening arguments. Now we want to know what everyone else thinks of their competitors. All right. We're going to start with your book, Chantal. We're going to start with Nostalgia. Jody, I'm going to start with you. So Jody argued that nostalgia connects directly to the moment that we are in now.
Yeah.
Candy, do you agree with that?
I don't. Only because for me, when I started reading Nostalgia, I got really caught with the fact that it's yet another book about a 50-year-old man having a sexual affair with a 20-something augmented woman. And I got so bogged down in that for me, as a 48-year-old woman who does not believe in augmentation, I was having difficulty relating to the book. And when I was preparing for this, now let me tell you, I had read Jody's book that he wrote. That might be a whole different. This might be a whole different battle if it was about that. Yeah, I would support that.
I mean,
as an
I
idea.
have to kind of interject because
just to finish my thought, though, I think the idea with Nostalgia is that while it was a well-written book, I keep coming back. This is about the books, not about us as personalities. It is about the theme. So we're not even trying to pick what's the best book. We're saying what is the book that best matches the theme of what does every Canadian have to read right now? And for me, Nostalgia wasn't it. Whether I enjoyed the book or not, that's not the one for me that has that urgency.
Okay.
Well,
sorry, it's your book.
Well, the only thing I would say is your assessment of the girlfriend is wrong. She's actually a natural. She's not augmented.
Oh, I
he
thought
is
she
augmented.
was. Yeah, I knew
right?
he was too, but
his life was created. So
Yes. What I was
she's like one of the only characters that is not fabricated in the whole story.
And she's too young to need augmentation anyway.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
really.
she's 21, he's 55,
Yes.
but
We're not ageist.
we're being
the part
ageist,
that
but in the
connects it
opposite
is that we
direction.
have people running across the border in minus 40-degree weather. This is a story about people that want to move to better places. And he separates the world north and south. And there's a wall or a gate or a fence or whatever description you want to use. And there's always somebody trying to get into another place, which is what we have now. We're dealing with a crisis right now of immigration across the world. And that's what this book is talking about. And regardless of if you have your personality reprogrammed and you decide, that's it, I'm done with one of the characters in there, she's barely in there for a page, decides, I don't want to raise my kids, I don't want to be with my husband, and she reprograms her life. It's not that easy. Your past will always catch up with you, as the main characters find out in the end.
Okay, Jody, just because we want to do about 4 minutes per book,
Okay.
I'd like to have Humble weigh in on that as well. What are your thoughts on this? Does this directly, connect to the moment that we're in right now?
I feel with every story you read, especially with fiction, they're using lies to tell the truth. And there's definitely themes that are discussed in Nostalgia that you can definitely connect with, whether it's on a very superficial level. Me reading this book and hearing about the youth complaining that the older generation has a clutch on everything is the same way the youth now, my sister says, my kids will never be able to afford their own home. They're going to have to continue living there. It's complete, and it can connect to Chantal's book. Because of climate situations, people are moving. And because people are moving, it's going to disrupt civilization as we understand it. So I completely see how it connects. In terms of, is it the most alarming and is it the most what we need to address right now? I mean, that's up for debate. I mean, if we connect them all
debating
together,
it right
then
now.
Yeah, well, it's nice of you to allow for that debate. And you know what? You could even debate it if you wanted to. But actually,
you know what? In terms of all of Canada, in terms of the different parts of Canada, maybe not so much in the less metropolitan areas.
Okay, I want to let's move on that. Measha, I'm going to have you.
I'm sorry.
I'm
I
sorry.
am going to say
You
that
have
the
a very
girlfriend
important point.
was one of my favorite characters because she was one of the biggest survivors in the whole book because she was doing what she had to do, namely shacking up with an older guy in order to have a life that she could actually live. And so there was a real resourcefulness there that I really connected with.
Okay, noted. I'm going to flip to The Right to Be Cold at this point. Now, Chantal agreed that this is the book we need now because of climate change. Does The Right to Be Cold inspire you to make climate change a priority? Jody, I want to ask you that question first.
I feel bad, but no. It's a tough read. There's way too much information about things that have no relation to climate change. Her life is as incredible as it is. I don't need to know every little detail about who was where and who said what. Also, climate change is an issue that we're dealing with as a planet, and to try and narrow it down to make it personal, I think is a little bit rich. It's an issue we're all dealing with, and her efforts are amazing and heroic. but at the same time, the story is just too hard. It's too hard to read and get the facts and deal with the issue as it is.
Okay, I think Chantal, this would be a good time to let you respond to that.
Well, Jody, let me just say to you that when we are uniting as a country with the amazing inspiration and empowerment that Selah Watt-Cloutier provides through her story, we will not need you to join us in the fight. I think you are pretty centered in the fight that you are in, and so I think you're making yourself clear. For me, it is you were talking about connectedness. See, this book is the book that we need to read to understand that we are, as human beings, connected to everything around us, each other, God or consciousness, the environment, weather, and I think that Selah only proves it through the truth. There is nothing fictional about this. There is no lie needed to be said to tell the truth. This story is based on, this book is based on her personal story, her brave personal story, as well as a series of, maybe too heady for you, I'm sorry, Jody, but scientific facts and groups that come together. And this book is so forgiving of people like yourself, and it's so it speaks its truth lovingly.
I'm the problem. I'm creating climate change.
Not at all. It's the way that you said. It's the way that you said it does not inspire you. So I respect you. I adore you.
It doesn't sound like you respect
I'm saying that you.
It does not.
Well, no. I respect you. What I'm saying is that we won't need your response at all to this book because you missed it, and I feel like we need people. I want everybody
I think Chantal,
to read the book.
We know both where
so
you and Jody both stand. I'd like to get Humble to weigh in on this.
I think there's two separate things here. There's one is, do we recognize the importance of climate change? And the second is, does this book do a good job in pushing forward that issue? You know, I cared about climate change before I read this book.
Yeah.
But I look at this book as the champion of climate change, where she, not so much. Because where she said it's all truths, there's still a lot of perspectives in there. One example was when she talked about Bridget Bardot doing activism to stop seal hunting, and then turning that around to say how that had a negative impact on the Inuit men who were selling seal pelts, and how that impacted their self-identity, how that impacted them on an economic level. That is still a perspective, and that is where you lost me, because at the end of the day, Bridget Bardot was...
Hold on.
Can I weigh in before?
Well, okay, hold on. So you got your point. I just don't want to run out of time on this particular book. It's obviously
I feel like again, I care about climate change. Was this book the most concise way to further the cause? And is this what I'm going to hold up and shove down people's throats to get that message out there?
Yeah.
I feel like no.
Okay, I'm sorry, Candy.
But that's the point. That's the point. Her voice is saying we don't force anything down anyone's throat.
But really
we come at things peacefully and with love. And
okay,
and
all right.
then
One final
that's how we
comment,
speak.
as brief as you can make it, Candy, so we can move
Jody
on.
does matter. If we want to heal as a nation and we want somebody to read a book that every Canadian can read, it's not about you're not invited. I need my white brothers. I need my straight brothers and sisters.
He read it. He read it. It didn't hit him.
I want to get
He read it. It didn't hit him. So
Chantal,
I want everyone else to read it, and the people who do
Chantal,
like
your
it, we
point
need them
is
in the fight.
taken. I want to move on to 15 Dogs, just so that every book has some time here. Now, Humble argued that 15 Dogs helps us understand the human condition. Now, Measha, do you agree with that?
Well, it's hard if you're not a dog person. But I am a person. So I was thrilled by the fact that I could get into the aspects of human consciousness that can make us relate to the least of us. Do you understand? Like, I could dismiss a dog because I don't own them and I've never had them. But I liked the exercise of exploring human consciousness and knowing whether or not you would react that way, the aspects of growing into a thought pattern, of creating community and language. the thing is, I read it a year and a half ago, like most of Canada, and I was at the Gillers when he got presented the award, and I love that he's at home, well-deservedly counting his stacks of money, and I wish him all the best. Now, do I need it to win this competition and be the thing that Canada reads right now? I don't, because I think they will be reading it. I think they are reading it. I think it is an amazing book, but I don't think it should win, because I want something to win that maybe...
Duly noted. Chantal, your thoughts about 15 Dogs? Is it, does it explore the human condition?
Anyone who knows me, anyone knows that I'm a dog person, like obsessed. Like usually I like dogs more even maybe than people. So I really enjoyed the book. I think it's a great book, and yes, everybody seems to have read it. It's already received awards and accolades, and it's been celebrated. So I don't really feel like it needs a win. And you know, like despite the fact that I'm a huge dog person and that I enjoyed the book very much, I don't think it's a book we need. It's not urgent that we read it. And also, even if I was to talk about the human condition and being able to gain insight about the human condition through you know this shift that dogs have to make, I mean, I didn't necessarily find that I related with the perspective on everything that was said about the human condition.
Do you need to be a dog person to appreciate this book? Did you find that it explored?
I got 2 dogs. I've had dogs most of my life, and I actually found because I'm a dog person, it kind of annoyed me.
Right.
Because it's a great story.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. The Greek gods are fascinating, but these dogs were given intelligence and then almost didn't evolve. And then, you know, and then they were ignorant. Like the writer was inconsistent with how much they comprehended. So I couldn't figure out how smart are they or how much are they evolving. Like, and I was talking about this with my brother last night. The last poem that Prince writes, the dog, and even dogs with human intelligence write crappy poetry. But
I mean, they have paws for hands. We have to cut them some slack here.
Right, but in his last poem he writes, before he dies, he mentions pulling back a curtain. But nowhere in the book at all has Prince ever identified that he even knows what a curtain is. And now he's writing a poem with the word curtain in it. And for me, in my mind, like that's the kind of stuff that starts to gnaw at me. As much as I loved the book, I got to be honest, it's one of my favorite books.
Okay.
I like the inconsistencies with the characters and how intelligent and how much are they evolving it just grinded on me right to the last page.
I love exactly what Jody said, because we can literally stop using the word dogs and say people. Say, I'm frustrated with humanity, with how intelligent we are, and how many problems and how much we're not evolving. And I feel like that's exactly what he completely beautifully illustrated in this book, was the struggles that, you know, it's even said, it's an occasional gift. Intelligence is a plague and just an occasional gift. And again, the problems that we have in the world come from the fact that we think that we're in control at all times.
Humble says that you can say not dogs and say people. I'd say you can say not dogs and say men, because it was a completely misogynistic book where all the female dogs...
so rich.
All right, so we'll have to get to that. I mean, now we've opened up a whole new can.
First, and we only got to know them through the male dogs.
Thank you, Candy.
And even Humble, when he introduced it, said, this is a man-made problem. And he used those exact words, man-made.
All right.
So rich. So rich.
All right.
His argument
We got to move on. We got to move on. Before we tackle the next book, we have something special for all of you guys. There is some motivation from your authors waiting for you.
My author too?
If Company Town won Canada Reads, after someone peeled me up off of the floor, I would endeavor to buy Measha a smoked old-fashioned at Morgan's on the Danforth.
If Nostalgia wins, I promise to give Jody a trip to India to see the Taj Mahal, or the Serengeti and see a wildebeest migration and a lion chase.
Take me and I'll vote for you.
If The Right to Be Cold wins, Canada Reads 2017,
You guys can all come.
I promise to host Chantal in the Arctic for a wonderful concert.
I get an old-fashioned.
Humble, because he seems to me to be so self-sufficient and so present in his own life, and I admire that. And so the only thing that I could say is I could express my admiration for the kind of man I think he is.
So none of his money.
If the break wins, I promise to give Candy a beautiful dinner with an endless stream of perfect martinis and cocktails, and then we have to do something fun, whatever she would like to do.
Those voices were from Madeline Ashby, MG Vasanji, Sheila Watt-Cloutier, Andre Alexis, and Katharina Vermette. Some of you got food and drink. You get admiration. That's your fault for being such an overachiever. And I think you're getting chased by a lion. I don't think good things are happening for you either. But
no lion's taking me down.
No lion's taking you down. Okay, we are newly motivated, which is
We're all getting
fantastic.
in Jody's suitcase.
I get an all-inclusive trip to India.
Oh, and now you're taking people with
I'm
you?
just saying,
I don't know
you guys
if it's
can all
all
come.
friends
I'm just
inclusive.
saying,
I think
mark the right spot.
Katerina gave me in the country this book, and she doesn't need to give me a single other thing.
That's a nice line.
Not a single other thing.
Okay,
That's
so
all I need.
with me are 5 newly motivated panelists. Some of that bribery will have worked, I imagine. And so with those incentives in mind, let's get back to the debate. Let's talk about Company Town. In her opening statement, Measha argued the Company Town administers the medicine we need in order to heal. Now, how does Company Town do that? Candy?
I'm not sure how Company Town does that. I will say that this is a challenge in terms of thinking about the theme, because I love this book. I loved Andre. I loved hearing Humble talk about it on Q. Company Town, from the moment I started it, I said to my wife, you have to read this book. And when I met Madeline, something really attached with me about her. But when I think about the urgency of the theme, this is the one book, the one that all Canadians have to read. I couldn't get there. I mean, I loved her strong main character, but really what happens, an argument that I make a lot that frustrates me, is that when a woman character is written strongly, they give to her male traits, the physical, all that physical stuff. And
she's a bodyguard.
I don't necessarily think that a woman character has to be given male traits in order to be strong. I think you can be a strong, soft woman. I'm one.
How do you respond to that?
I don't consider strong traits to be exclusively male. I think that physical strength is something that both men and women can possess. And I think Hua's exactitude in her training is what gives her the precision and grace that she needs in order to read a situation. Her truest weapon is her intuition, because she can read people and she knows what a situation is before anybody else in the room. And she's not enhanced. She doesn't have any kind of chip or mood altering anything in her body. She is completely pure. And what Madeline does by creating the only character in the entire book who remains unaltered, she trumpets her to the fore, because we as the reader can now see that authenticity is the only thing we need to truly survive.
Jody, there must be things in this book that resonate with you as a guy with military training. Did you feel that it administers the medicine that we need in order to heal on top and above and beyond that?
I don't know about all that. Of all the characters in all the stories, I got to be honest, the main character in Company Town really spoke to me. Despite what you think, she's a tough character, regardless, man, woman, dog, Métis, lion, whatever. She's a great character. The overall theme of the book, I think, it's a good story. It's a good fictional tale to run along. But whether or not it's something that Canada needs right now, I think that's again, as Humble said, it's very debatable, which is why we're here today.
Right, exactly. Chantal, would you like to weigh in on that? Your feelings on Company Town?
Yeah, I really wanted to champion Hua for sure. I mean, she's heroic, and she's an amazing heroine. I found the book to be I almost need to read it over again and over again and over. It felt like a lot of stream of consciousness details, like pouring out of the author, and for me, it was a little bit chaotic to read. And get really into a flow, with the storyline. I feel like because of Hua, I should be a bit more inspired than I am. And I think the word character that Jody used that was good. And I get a lot of that cliche character feeling from the book, and it was a tough read for me.
Chantal, I just want to have Measha have the final words on her own book.
I think there is a cinematic element that exists in Company Town that does not exist in the other books, save for maybe 15 Dogs. There is a supernatural, surreality that Madeline Ashby creates from the ground up in New Arcadia. So it is a complete, fully encompassing sci-fi futuristic society, and there is nothing left out. She accounts for everything. Her mind boggles me, and I was wrapped from start to finish in the story only because I knew that I would never be left hanging. There are elements and plot points in other books, which I know we'll get to, that really left me hungry for more information. Now, the Watt-Cloutier book was not one of them, because every single last dang detail of every meeting was in there.
Okay.
But, and however...
Can I just say one thing
well,
about
we're going to leave that on fighting words if it's like less than 20
less
seconds.
than 20 seconds.
Yeah.
I agree with you on the Hollywood part, and that's one of the reasons it wasn't my favorite, because they wrapped it all together in a pretty bow at the end.
Yeah, love
Which Hollywood has done.
We looked up to her for not being augmented and what happened at the end.
Well, what's the conflict of humanity? We sometimes get subjected to decisions we didn't get to make ourselves.
But at the end of the day, so in terms of the author saying this is, and when we saw her at the Indigo event, she said this is a book about being invisible. But at the end of the day, they fixed her all up the way they
Because she
needed
would have
to.
died otherwise.
Okay, we're going to move on to the break, you guys. Candy is obviously, she wants to hear things about her book. She argued much along the lines that you said. She argued also that this book can heal a nation. So, Measha, what do you think about that compared, either relative to Company Town or not?
In order to heal a nation, you have to include the entire nation, and this book decidedly excludes men. It makes men seem like, to tell it the way the break tells it, every man is a potential rapist, gang member, dysfunctioning member of the police force. There is no redeemable male character in this entire book, and it angers me as the mother of 2 small boys. I want to be able to raise my men to see themselves as potentially good people, redeemable people, and there's not a one. And it makes me incensed only because Vermette creates this predisposition to dislike men as a literary device to cast suspicion on characters like Clayton, who we think has committed this heinous crime, and we later discover it was somebody else.
Spoiler alert, spoiler
of
alert.
our predisposition,
Clayton didn't do it, yeah.
we assume it's him. We assume that he's being protected by, a traumatized teen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am resentful of that kind of device being used because I don't think it does anything to bring the country together, and I think it creates a combative atmosphere between men and women.
All right, combative atmosphere. I feel like Jody should be the guy to talk next once you hear the words combative atmosphere.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that description. Within the first couple pages, I'm trying to read the book and understand what the story is about, but in the first couple pages, I'm trying to remember the quote. It's something about the witness of the crime is infuriated by the way white men say goodbye, and I'm like, white guys say goodbye a different way. Like it was such, and it's only in the first 10 pages, and then from there on, it was a lot of the feeling like Measha described. You're trying to get into it, but at the same time, as a man, you're constantly being pointed
And I'm
out.
feeling that way as a black
I'd
woman.
love for you to respond actually to this. Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, I think the Métis police officer was not disrespected. I think his marriage was such a common experience for so many Indigenous people in this country. As I travel around the country, so many Indigenous people tell me this is my life. She has chosen to center around women and this relationship with women. And through the telling of this book, how I read it is that she is trying to help people understand. A few years ago when the RCMP said most of the violence against Indigenous women is perpetrated by Indigenous men, the rest of Canada said, oh, okay, then we don't have to worry about that anymore now. That's their own problem. I feel like what she was trying to do is show the very things that the two of you have mentioned, is how colonization has affected both our males and our females and their relationship within our communities, and that there isn't space anymore. And also, these women have had this experience. So this particular story is about that. And I think what she would want you to feel, Jody, is when you look at those two beautiful daughters that you have, and you think about if they happen to be straight, how they are going to be treated by the men in their lives, and that you would pray and hope to raise them so that, you know,
Yeah,
they
but
would
there's no
always be,
examples of those men in this book.
protected. But in this story is centered on these women and their life experiences. And the reality is that everywhere I have gone, Indigenous people have said to me, oh my God, that's my auntie. Oh my God, that's my cousin. Oh my God, that's my experience.
I want to wrap it up on that because I want you guys to have what we call a lightning round, where you give sort of your last sort of statements, your last chance to respond. It has to be relatively brief, but at least, you know, it's good that we don't run out of time before that. So Measha, I'll go to you first.
What am I meant to be answering? Because I want to be good.
This is your final plea. Why should Canada read this book?
Well, I think what is wonderful about Company Town is that it is inclusive. There is no race that exists in this futuristic society as an exclusionary defining characteristic.
Okay.
There is no joblessness. It is a utopic view while at the same time taking into consideration that somebody's utopia is somebody else's dystopia.
Got it. Okay. So we have to keep it as brief as possible. Jody, your last plea. Why should people read this book? Why should this book win Canada Reads?
People should read Nostalgia because if you want to understand how things are going to play out in our future, you need to understand our past. And Nostalgia makes you think about how things happened in the past and how it applies to the future and to the way things will play out.
Okay, very good. Humble.
There are many themes in this book. One I want to bring up right now is fundamentalism versus those who are trying to push for a future. At the end of the day, some people are trying to hold on to the past, as you can see with the Make America Great hats right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important to see that where that comes from a human nature standpoint.
Okay. 10 seconds or less.
I don't
Final
want to
plea.
repeat what I've said already. I'll say this. This book can't go out in the first round because it has been the #1 selling book in Canada for the last 2 weeks in a row on the Globe and Mail best-selling list. Obviously, Canadians are feeling it. For that reason alone, can't go out on the
Okay.
first day.
Chantal, 10 seconds, a final plea for your book.
In response to all the stats and it being difficult to read, we have to pay homage to Sela's sacrifice and her expertise, her 10,000 hours. She's an outlier. And also, we need solutions at a time in history where we're so urgently pressed. And this book offers that by giving Indigenous people an investment and giving them leadership.
All right, thank you, Chantal. All right, it's time for the vote. We're here. We've done it. That is it. There's no much. It just flies by, and there is no more time to debate today. So it's time to cast your very first vote of the week.
Was that a first-class India flight?
Mark an X beside the book that you want to eliminate from this competition. All right, we have Aaron from the Canada Reads team who's going to collect all the ballots. Which title will be the first to go? Will it be Company Town by Madeline Ashby?
How dare you?
How dare I? Could Nostalgia by M.G. Vasanji survive the day?
How dare you?
Will we say goodbye to The Right to Be Cold by Sheila Watt-Cloutier? Chantal, is everyone saying how dare you if you want to jump on that? It could be 15 Dogs by Andre Alexis. Or will The Break by Catherine Vermette be the first to go? All right. Well, while you think on
Can I
that.
ask a quick question?
Oh, you can absolutely ask.
Did
a quick
everybody vote the way they thought they were going to vote right now or not?
Yeah.
Me either. I totally changed my vote based
That's
on this
the
debate.
magic of Canada Reads.
Yeah.
That's the beauty. You just can't predict it. A couple of weeks
I'm
before,
totally
what do you
shocked.
think?
I'm totally shocked with my vote.
While we have this time, I just want to tell listeners, if you want to weigh in, it's hashtag Canada Reads on Twitter and Instagram, at CBC Books is our Twitter handle, and there's a lot of stuff going on in this country right now related to this show. I met people in the last few months who told me that they would have Canada Reads parties in their homes.
You're kind of lucky that I'm a
I have a
panelist.
Canada Reads party in my hotel every night.
That's not really the type of party.
A lot of reading.
I mean,
are lucky.
I'm not sure what literature has to do with your parties exactly, Measha. These are people who have books out, they're eating olives.
But you are lucky, Ellie, that I'm actually a panelist this year because generally Wob Canoe will tell you when he sat in that chair, I was at home tweeting to him every 3 seconds and saying, get a hold of him, do this, do that, do this. So at least as a panelist, I can't be bothering you about how you
Was Wob responding to you? Is the
He was
question.
wonderful.
Yeah?
Yes. Yes.
Like sitting right here while hosting.
No,
I mean,
not
that
while
man,
hosting, but like
Under
the next
those
day.
ballots, he was texting Candy.
That's why he's in politics.
Hey, it's called the Moccasin Trail for a reason, man. We're connected.
All right, I have the ballots in front of me. Here we are. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Candy Palmutter, how did you
first?
vote?
Why me
How did you
first?
vote? Tell me how you voted.
I voted not at all the way I expected to vote, but the arguments around the table moved a couple of books up for me. This was supposed to be my first one out until I heard Humble on the radio talking about fundamentalism. Sorry.
Yeah.
I love you as an author, and I'm sorry that I voted for you, Sela, but I did. The right to be cold.
The right to be cold. Okay, that is one vote against the right to be cold. Jody Minnick, how did you vote?
I know what you mean.
I thought I would have voted the same, but I ended up voting for the break.
The break. All right, so one vote against the right to be cold, one vote against the break. Chantal Kreviazuk, how did you vote?
I voted as I thought I would, and that's Company Town.
Company Town. One vote against Company Towns. We have 3 different votes here. Right to be cold, the break, and Company Town all have one vote against them.
That's amazing.
All right, Measha Brueggergosman, how did you vote?
Only because of the representation issue, I voted for the break.
The break. That is one more vote
You know
against
I
the
love
break.
you.
That's 1 for the right to be called, 1 against Company Town, and 2 against the break. This could be, well, we'll see what happens. Humble the Poet, how did you vote?
I care about the cause, but I also care about accessibility. And being a former school teacher, if I felt a bunch of kids couldn't read it and grasp it,
Okay.
if not something Canada could read, I voted a right to be cold.
Against the right to be cold. So we have a 2-way tie.
Draw.
Both
So,
Indigenous books.
The right to be cold and the
not
break both
sad,
on the
it's about
chopping block.
literature.
Now we have to go to Chantal, who will have to choose. I mean, tough decision for you, Chantal, obviously, between the right to be cold or the break. You have to choose one of these books that goes.
What do you mean?
What?
She's
I have to
choosing?
choose?
You have to
She
choose.
picked
You are the
Company
tiebreaker.
I'm representing the right
She's
to
the
be
one
cool.
person that
How?
didn't vote for either one of the books.
Chantal, you are actually. Is that correct? That it is Chantal?
Yeah.
It is correct, Chantal.
It can't be.
You voted
You are
for Company Town.
You voted for Company
Really?
Town. Yeah.
So you
So
have-
now you have to break the tie between the others. One of them is your book, Chantal.
I
so
have to.
Let's just take the
Let's
Band-Aid
just-
off.
Yeah, I mean-
Obviously, the break is out.
She's very reluctant to
Yeah,
say the
it is,
words.
except that was my favorite book.
I know.
Besides
I know.
my own. So
All right.
goodbye
the
to the break. But
is
wow, Candy, I love you. I love the break so
eliminated.
much, babe. I'm so sorry.
So sorry.
Candy, can I just say that in 2004, when I represented Alice Munro's The Love of a Good Woman, it went out in the first round.
All right.
And-
I have to sign off,
Yes,
you guys.
yes,
We are going to go dark soon. That is a tough day, and that is part of what Canada Reads is all about. That is it for Canada Reads today. Thank you to our panelists, Measha Brueggergosman, Jody Minnick, Chantal Kreviazuk, Candy Palmutter, hurting right now. I know we'll get some information
I'm hurting for
you.
Katerina, and I'm hurting for this book.
Humble the
and all
Poet.
Canadians that love
All
it.
5 of them will be back tomorrow. There are only 4 books left. We have 3 more votes to go. And we will have a winner by the end of this week if we survive this. So thanks for joining us. I'm Ali Hassan. We'll see you again tomorrow. Until then, read on, Canada.
Great hosting.
For those of you web streaming, listening to us on our live web stream, you would have heard that The Break by Katharina Vermette was just eliminated, which I would say is a shocker to many of us, and probably more you than anybody.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how you feel?
I'm very shocked. And I think what I'm shocked about the most, in preparation for this, I tried to think of all the things that my panelists, co-panelists would say in defense of this book. And as an avid reader who's been reading all my life and reading male-dominated and white-dominated books and loving them and giving them their due, that the argument that would come out against this book, because this was an Indigenous woman talking about her experience and that it related to so many Indigenous women, that all those women were simply silenced today with an argument that said that this was against
I
fair.
wouldn't go that far either.
That's how I
because
felt.
and that's your right to feel that way, but this is already a bestseller, right?
No,
This book is a bestseller, so people are reading this book. It's getting out. Look, I read this book. Maybe I would have read it one day anyway, because somebody would have given me a referral, said read this, but I read it.
What do you mean is being silenced? Like, we're voting on books, on how we felt.
The idea, I'm just saying how I felt in
yeah.
terms of the idea of that being the argument. I thought maybe the argument
more arguments
might be
against The Break if you'd like to hear them.
You know?
That was just the major one.
Well, go ahead if you'd like to.
I do not like to be made to feel like I'm silencing someone's voice by voicing my own opinion.
Yeah, well,
And
I'm
I
just
think
saying
we
mine
can-
as well.
And to say that their fates are sealed by a bunch of people voting on books is not fair.
Well,
because this is a show.
I realize that, but I take this book to heart.
I can see
this
that.
book is a lived experience. I take the experience of the author to heart, and I take this this competition Canada Reads very, very seriously.
Well, I mean, this is the
So
challenge
I'm
of all
simply saying
art.
how I feel
No, I get
in
it.
terms of going up.
And this is the
Can I-
challenge of all art, right? This is the thing
think
that
my mic is
everybody.
on.
Sorry,
We can hear you,
Chantal,
Chantal,
go
go
ahead.
I just want to say that we all need to keep championing the book, The Break. I understand how Measha felt, and I respect, and Jody, I say this to you too, okay? I do respect what you said. What I was trying to say before was that, okay, get out the way, then if it doesn't make you want to fight, let's fight everybody else who gets what the book is saying, okay? But I do respect everyone's opinion, and I respect Measha's opinion, but I think that for those of us who connected with The Break and are taking something from it, we need to just keep the buzz going about the book. Candy, you know this was my favorite book besides The Right to Be Cold. And I think we should all that believe in the book, let's tell everyone to read this book. It is important. It is going to help bring a deeper understanding to the plight of Indigenous people, First Nations people, and Aboriginal people. And I think that, yeah, it doesn't necessarily speak to the leadership right now of Indigenous people, but it does speak to a huge opportunity. It does speak to the stagnance. When I first started reading the book, I thought that we were in the 70s. It was today. I've realized by page 60 or so, holy crap, nothing has changed. I know those lanes, those streets, those fields, those seasons. I know that part of Winnipeg. That's my hood. And
Chantal, I have to throw it to this.
I was overwhelmed. So.
Thank you for that. I have to. The studio audience here is waiting to ask some questions. And studio audience, I'm going to rely on you to get us out of this rather somber mood that we are all in right now. No pressure on you guys, but this is a question to ask. Any questions that you're interested in?
Hi. I have a question for Measha. I read Company Town. I loved Company Town. But I struggle with a scene and an issue that comes near the end of the novel, and I'm sorry for the spoilers that I'm about to impart on all of you. At the end, when the nanobots make their way into her bloodstream, it is a sexually transmitted disease. It's an infection that is obviously transmitted by the love affair between the two of them, and I have a really hard time reconciling the good parts of that novel to that one action, where it's just brushed over. It's never mentioned that obviously they weren't using protection. And the fact that this scene occurred when she was in a traumatized state, she was injured, she was drugged up, and I have a hard time believing that he didn't take advantage of her. So how do you spin that into a happy ending? That's my question.
That's a great question. And I was conflicted reading it myself. I come from the perspective of Hua finding someone with whom she could be intimate. And I think it's up to the individual reader to decide whether or not it was an invasion or her trust was taken advantage of, or if she finally opened herself and gave over to the experience. Because up until this point, all we've heard about Hua is how down she is on herself, how much she is feeling that she is undeserving of love, all of these things. And then that scene itself, for me, I cried for its tenderness. So from my perspective, I wasn't seeing that, but I do see your point. And I think that conflict, in a way that is really unfortunate, exists in a lot of sexual encounters. And I pray that we all live our lives with the clarity that we would like to enjoy, so that when we see things like that, if that ever comes up in our own lives, we'll know what to do.
I don't want to be gross, but did that intercourse save her life, or
it did? So ultimately,
so there's your silver lining, I suppose.
But it's
she's
not
diseased
like it's not
but
like
alive.
It's not like a save the life. It's like even a conflicting saving of the life, because she never wanted to be altered, and she's got these nanobodies in her. Spoiler!
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's like you are left thinking, is this good or not? And you have to think that way. Because if you thought it was good, that's one thing. And if you thought it was bad, it was another thing. But that's good writing and that's good narrative. The question mark at the end.
Okay.
That's not up.
Okay. All right, so there are no... Is that a hand up in the air over there? So we have one question over there.
Hi. I guess my question is kind of for everybody. In terms of 15 dogs, I think the argument was brought forward that most of them were put forward, or the female perspective was put forward from the view of the male dogs, which I did agree with, but like the female characters were, I guess, lived through by the male characters, the male dogs that were in the book. But as the author was male, I guess my question is, when most books are visiting the female perspective or the male perspective from either a female or male author, that also affects how we read things. And if in this case where we're kind of arguing over female representation or male representation, how much do you think your author's, I guess, delivery of those different sex characteristics affected how you saw these books?
Great question.
Deep.
Humble, I think, you know, if you'd like, you're...
I guess while I was reading it, I guess because it had to do with dogs and they were still consolidating their own instincts, and they were still dogs with intelligence, and they, in terms of what it meant to be in a pack, what it meant to be mounted, you know, you had sexual dominance being displayed not only towards females, you had it towards other males. Smaller dogs were being mounted by larger dogs, and they were both males. For me, when I was thinking about female representation, I was thinking about Mira. I was thinking about the human. That was probably the representation that I had focused on the most. That's one of the characters that was represented the most in there. And, you know, and even then when they were talking about, Majnoun talking about seeing the dynamic with her and her life partner, seeing where dominance was in the kitchen versus where dominance was in the bedroom, and trying to consolidate that and make sense of it. So to me, I thought it was well-rounded. However, I am a male. I may have the blinders on, and I'm open to that, understanding that I may not see things the way they appear towards other people.
Sure. Should we go around the table? It was a question for everybody. Candy, would you like to address that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the gender that you inhabit is always going to have an influence on your writing. I think right now we're at an interesting time in society because there's so much non-binary discussion and people living that experience. Having said that, when it comes down to it, we are all fighting to be heard. I mean, you know, I travel this country from coast to coast to coast, and people, it seems to me, want to be heard. They want to be acknowledged and they want to be seen. And so I think anytime you're reading, if you're feeling that's not happening, it's going to affect how you respond to that piece of literature.
Yeah, exactly. Music is the same way too. Any art depends on where your own mind is. Right?
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I'm a feminist. I'm an Indigenous woman, and I thought it was like high time for this book. And I thought that Katerina, as a single mother who grew up in the West End of Winnipeg, opened her guts out and poured it out in this book. And really, like my hurt and my sadness is, first of all, I'm going to put it on my shelf right next to The Inconvenient Indian, because I actually threw my flat screen TV out of the window when it went out on day one.
True story?
And, yes,
Did it go out a window?
and
Yeah.
for Thomas King, I was like, I'm so sorry, Thomas. And to Katerina, I say I wish you had a champion that could have, I guess, debated these points better. Because this book deserved to go further than obviously I had the skill to take it.
I don't feel like you should beat yourself up about it at
No.
all. I mean,
But
that's
in
just the
terms
nature
of
of
gender,
this.
like, this is the question about the gender thing, and I didn't see it coming.
Chantal, can we get you to weigh in here?
Yeah, I think that it's been hit on. For me, what happened was when I was reading the book, I felt my own femininity, and I felt vulnerable. And instead of me being able to articulate that and get ahead of it and be like, oh wow, I'm feminine and I'm not sexualizing everything, and I'm not so primal with my sexuality quite like that, I wasn't able to frame it that way, and I actually became a little bit like bitter and resentful toward men in a way. Like, it just made me feel like, wow, did a guy ever write this? And I felt excluded in it. I felt that it wasn't I did not feel that it was like a full representation of, both it wasn't a representation of both genders. I didn't feel represented. But then again, I don't necessarily feel like I have to be.
You're talking about 15 dogs
Yep.
in particular, right? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I am. But when it came to the break, I have to be able to take my experience in 15 dogs and then allow someone to feel that for whatever reason from the break, and respect, that they had that opinion as well.
Right. I just want to flip. Oh, sorry. You go ahead and finish your last point.
No, go ahead.
Well,
that said, for me, the break that didn't happen to me. I felt that all of those more explicit or raw problems, challenge, moments in the book were handled very, very sensitively. The rape and some of the really ditailed aspects. I just felt that it was done very artfully. So.
Okay, thank you. Now I have an online question, but I'd like to get you guys to weigh in on your own personal.
I have literally forgotten what the question was.
The question, can we re-ask it, or
The
humble?
role of
It had to do with gender representation.
Gender representation in all the books.
Just how the author, being male or female, affects how you read it, being male or female.
Super.
But all the books.
All
It's
the
about
books,
all the
right.
books. Okay, my understanding was that it was just about 15 dogs. But how does that? I mean, does that play a role?
I often find, like, if I'm reading a book written by a man and he's talking about a female character, I get uncomfortable, because I find men are. I'm oversensitive. My mom was, very much a part of my upbringing. I got 2 daughters. I have a sister. I have lots of female friends, but I always find it kind of crass. And I almost get uncomfortable as a guy, like reading.
Are you saying men are creepy and gross? Because that is
Yeah, I
something-
feel a little creepy and gross sometimes when a guy is writing about a male character interacting with a female character.
Sure.
Even in 15 Dogs, there was just some of the language I was like, I mean, you don't have to go like that. Like, you don't have to be that abrupt, or you don't have to use those words.
Crass.
You can say the same thing
But I think
without
you're
being
supposed
quite.
to feel uncomfortable. Like it's.
No, I know,
it
but
didn't elicit some kind of.
I know, but I don't. Whenever if I read a female author, I don't get the same kind of creepiness, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, it's also dogs. Like, when they meet, they sniff each other's butt. So.
No, but
Like, I know, like, when he talks about meeting even human characters,
He
like,
didn't
he
blink an eye
mentions
when I
like the
did that to
smell
him
of their
last night.
crotch.
Right, I bet he did.
It's like 15 dogs.
Those are dogs. I'm just saying, and as much as I, beat up on the break for how I felt a little bit like pushed away, at the same time, I understand the perspective, I try to, but I find just with male authors, often I kind of like,
Right.
yes.
Okay, we have 1 minute left. There's a question online for you, or you can respond
I'll
to
do
this.
the question online.
You want this? This is
I
a
loved
nice,
your question.
lighthearted question.
I loved your question.
This is from Paige. How did you prep for the debate, Measha? I love the coil-bound books. And I think it's nice to recognize the nerdiest among you.
The nerdiest of I got the tabs and the coils. Well, listen, I do come by it honestly with the rebinding of the books, because when I
There's
learn
no
a score,
question.
I have to rebind the score so that it lies flat on the piano so I can read it. Now this I rebound so that I could lie in bed and not have the page turn. So that when I fall asleep, and I'm not going to mention any books because the debate is over, when I fall asleep in the middle of reading, I want the book to stay on the page.
That's great.
And then I get the tabs, because the tabs tell me if I need to quickly review, then I only have to read this many pages and I'll know the whole scope of the book. I don't have tabs on the 15 Dogs because I done read it. And I loved it. I'm coming for 15 Dogs though. I mean, I have to. And I prepared by, for me, the literariness of the books is tantamount and slightly outweighs the subject matter. So when we talk about things being represented and the inclusion, I also look at the execution of a book.
Sure.
I will use an excerpt from The Break as the foreword in my own memoir. So moving was I by the writing. The thing is, as it all connects together and the glue, I'm not going to speak ill of the dead, as it were. But I will say that I'm not necessarily always looking at things emotionally.
Right.
I like to know that we're heralding literature. Everyone here is a winner. And in preparing for this, I felt blessed and honored as late as I came into the game to have been able to read all of these books.
I think let's wrap it up on the old "everyone's a winner" trope. Just a trope. I mean, wonderful mantra. Well, I do generally agree with that. These books are all on the bestseller list, and they are getting read, and they should all be read. And thank you so much. Day one. Yeah. Little tense. There's more of this to come. Thank you so much, Chantal. We appreciate you being here so much.
All the best to your son.
On behalf of all of us, thank you, everyone. Thank you to our live audience.
Thanks,
and thank you to our web audience as well. Thank you.